There's a moment in the mid-1960s where one band from Liverpool didn't just top the charts, they became the charts. Dozens of other artists watched their biggest moments get buried underneath them. These are 10 real chart battles the Beatles won. Verified, sourced, and stranger than the legend. Number 10, I Want to Hold Your Hand, the Beatles.
Say that something I wanna hold.
In the last weeks of 1963, a band from Tottenham called the Dave Clark Five was outselling almost everyone in Britain. Dave Clark himself later said they were moving roughly 130,000 copies a day at the single's peak.
And please say to me.
So many that on January 16, 1964, Glad All Over finally did what nobody thought was possible.
Let me be your man.
It knocked the Beatles' I Want to Hold Your Hand off the #1 spot in the UK. The British press went wild. Some papers seriously asked if the Dave Clark Five were about to dethrone the Beatles as Britain's band. Then, 3 weeks later, the Beatles landed in America. Their Ed Sullivan Show debut on February 9th pulled an estimated 73 million viewers, something close to 40% of the entire US population.
Understand when
I Want to Hold Your Hand shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, where it sat for 7 weeks. It didn't just win the American market, it kicked the door open for every British act behind it, including the very band that had just beaten them at home. The Dave Clark Five walked through that door and had a genuinely great American run, 17 top 40 hits in all. But Glad All Over itself only reached #6 in the States.
I feel happy inside.
In Britain, for 2 weeks, they were bigger than the Beatles. Everywhere else, they were the opening act.
I wanna hold your hand.
Number 9, She Loves You, the Beatles. By the autumn of 1963, Gerry and the Pacemakers had just done something no act in chart history had ever done. Their first 3 singles, How Do You Do It, I Like It, and You'll Never Walk Alone, all went to #1 in the UK, back to back to back. George Martin, the same producer working with the Beatles, had dressed You'll Never Walk Alone in sweeping strings, turning a Rodgers and Hammerstein show tune into something that felt genuinely enormous.
She almost lost her mind, but now
It hit #1 on October 23rd and held the top spot for 4 weeks. Then, She Loves You arrived and knocked it straight back off the summit.
she loves you, and you know you should be glad.
Both bands were from Liverpool. Both had been managed, at different points, by Brian Epstein. You'll Never Walk Alone went on to a second life nobody could have scripted, adopted by Liverpool Football Club as their matchday anthem, sung at stadiums across the country to this day. But its life at the top of the charts lasted exactly as long as it took the Beatles to release their next single.
You know you should be glad.
If you just learned something you never knew before, there is a whole lot more where that came from. Hit subscribe to The Rock Lens. Every single week, we go deeper into the real stories, secrets, and hidden history behind the music you have loved your whole life. The button is right there. One click. We will see you in the next one.
Number 8, the Beatles' Top 5 Sweep. On April 4th, 1964, the Beatles did something that has never been repeated. They held every single spot in the Billboard Top 5, all at once. She Loves You, Twist and Shout, Can't Buy Me Love, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Please Please Me.
Oh, you keep on saying you really...
12 of their songs were on the Hot 100 that same week. It stood alone for 57 years, until Drake matched it with a streaming-era sweep in 2021. Buried in that chart, sitting at #6, was a 22-year-old Texan named Terry Stafford, singing a cover of an obscure Elvis Presley album track called Suspicion. His voice was such a dead ringer for Presley's that DJs argued on air about whether it was Elvis. And the week after the Beatles' historic sweep, Stafford did something nobody else managed that spring. He broke the stranglehold, climbing to number 3.
I can't help.
It gets stranger. When Elvis's own original version was rush-released to cash in on the buzz, it peaked at number 103. The king of rock and roll couldn't outchart a sound-alike from Amarillo. In the 1 week all year that anybody managed to crack the Beatles' wall.
Why torture me?
Number 7, A Hard Day's Night, The Beatles.
You know I work all day.
In the summer of 1964, the Beatles pulled off something no act ever had, the number 1 album and the number 1 single in both the UK and the US, simultaneously, powered by A Hard Day's Night.
Everything seems to be right.
In that same stretch, a brand new Motown group called the Four Tops released their very first single for the label, Baby I Need Your Loving, was pure, polished soul.
Okay, when I'm home.
Levi Stubbs' voice, riding a Holland Dozier Holland production, so strong that Brian Holland reportedly predicted it would be a number 1. It sold over 1 million copies. It peaked at number 11. In almost any other season, that's a triumphant debut.
All day's night, I should be sleeping.
But 1964's airwaves belonged to the British invasion, with the Beatles sitting at its absolute center, and a brand new Motown act simply didn't have the promotional oxygen to break through the noise.
Okay, when I'm home.
The Four Tops got their full, historic due within a year, I Can't Help Myself, and Reach Out I'll Be There. Both went all the way to number 1. But their first classic launched into a wall of Beatlemania and had to settle for knocking on the door. Number 6, Yesterday, The Beatles. On October 2nd, 1965, a group of teenagers from Dayton, Ohio, the McCoys, hit number 1 with a song called Hang On Sloopy. It's now the official rock song of the state of Ohio. Exactly 1 week later, it was gone. Yesterday, the Beatles' first true solo recording, just Paul McCartney and a string quartet, took over the top spot and stayed there for a month straight. Rick Derringer, the McCoys' guitarist, later toured with Ringo Starr's all-star band and loved telling audiences a joke about it. We like to say, Hang On Sloopy was number 1, while Yesterday was number 2. They don't have to know which one was going which direction. When he checked with Ringo whether the bit was okay to tell, Ringo just looked at him and said, I didn't play on either one of them. It's a great line. It's also true that for exactly 7 days, a garage band from Ohio genuinely was bigger than the Beatles. Number 5, Yesterday, The Beatles. Later that same October, a vocal trio from Jamaica, Queens, 3 young women who called themselves the Toys, released a song built on an 18th century minuet, once misattributed to Bach.
High up in the tree, there lay the flag.
A Lover's Concerto sold over 2 million copies and climbed all the way to number 2 on the Hot 100. For its first week there, the song blocking them was Yesterday, the very same Beatles single that had just buried the McCoys days earlier.
Baby on the hill.
The Toys never got their turn at number 1. When Yesterday finally moved on after 4 weeks, the Rolling Stones' Get Off of My Cloud slid straight into the top spot instead. So a girl group from Queens spent all 3 weeks of their commercial peak stuck at number 2, boxed in first by one British invasion giant and then by another.
Every part of me. All right.
In the strangest twist of all, the Toys later recorded their own cover version of Yesterday, the exact song that kept them out of the top spot in the first place. Number 4, Paperback Writer, The Beatles. By May of 1966, the Rolling Stones had finally arrived at the summit. Paint It Black, a dark, sitar-driven single, unlike anything else on the radio, hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on May 7th.
The sun is working for the
For a moment, it looked like the Stones were becoming something more than Britain's other band. 3 weeks later, Paperback Writer came out and took the top spot straight from them. Keith Richards actually admitted the two bands used to coordinate their release dates by phone, so they'd never clash. There would be surreptitious phone calls. It was, okay, ours is ready, yours ain't. All right, you go first. This time, timing didn't favor the Stones, and Paperback Writer itself then got knocked off for one single week by Frank Sinatra's Strangers in the Night, before fighting its way straight back to number 1. Even the song that beat the Rolling Stones wasn't safe from getting beaten itself. Number 3. All You Need Is Love, The Beatles. On June 25, 1967, the Beatles performed All You Need Is Love live on the first ever global satellite broadcast. Watched by an estimated 400 million people in 25 countries, it shot to number 1 in both the UK and the US.
Nothing you can make that can't be made.
Just weeks earlier, Scott McKenzie, a journeyman folk singer, had released San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair, written by his old friend John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas, as a plea to calm the flood of hippies descending on one California city.
Love is all you need.
It became the unofficial anthem of the entire Summer of Love. In the UK, it actually succeeded All You Need Is Love at number 1, proof the two songs really were seen as a matched pair.
All you need is
But in America, San Francisco peaked at number 4, held off the top by the association's Windy, and by the time All You Need Is Love hit number 1 in the US that August, Mackenzie's single had already faded from the chart.
all you need is love.
He never had another hit. 50 plus years on, though, All You Need Is Love is the one everybody still remembers as the song of that summer, even though, chart for chart, it never technically touched him in America.
All you need.
Sometimes the shadow isn't cast by the numbers, it's cast by the legend.
All you need is love.
Number 2. Hey Jude, The Beatles.
To let her into your heart.
In August of 1968, the Rascals, reeling, like the rest of the country, from the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy that spring, released People Got to Be Free. It hit number 1 and stayed there for 5 weeks, one of the year's most urgent, most needed records. On August 26th, the Beatles released Hey Jude, over 7 minutes long, the longest number 1 single in US chart history at that point. After a single week where Jeannie C. Riley's Harper Valley PTA briefly held the top spot, Hey Jude took over on September 28th and did not let go for 9 weeks, tying the all-time record. It became the best-selling single of 1968 and the biggest Beatles single of their entire career. People Got to Be Free was exactly the record its moment needed. It just wasn't allowed to be the record that defined the season. The Beatles were. Number 1. The Beatles' Last Word. By the spring of 1970, the Beatles had effectively broken apart. Paul McCartney was publicly furious about how the long and winding road had been produced behind his back, with orchestral overdubs he never approved. Meanwhile, Ray Stevens, a versatile performer somewhere between novelty act and genuine balladeer, had climbed to number 1 with the warm, earnest Everything is Beautiful on May 30th, 1970. 2 weeks later, on June 13th, the long and winding road replaced it at the top and became the Beatles' 20th and final number 1 single in America. right as the band's breakup dominated every music headline in the country. Stevens had one of his biggest mainstream moments of his career, and it still got pulled into the gravity of the Beatles' last chapter. 20 number ones, 6.5 years, and even as they were falling apart in public, they were still doing what they'd always done, standing at the top of the mountain while somebody else's best record waited its turn just underneath them.